big round of applause for David Smith. Oh, there he is. Founder of Women Games. Have a seat, yeah, wherever you want to sit. We're gonna get you something to drink in just a second. And the next one on our panel is Sara Jakobsén, a pro gamer. She's playing for Excel eSports, and if I'm not mistaken, League of Legends. And we have Kristina Müller, who happily jumped in to fill up our panel. Thank you so much for making it on such short notice. Kristina Müller from ESL, Head of Strategic Partnership. That's amazing, guys. This looks very, very good, and I can't wait to get things started. But first of all, please tell us a bit about yourself, about your job, and of course your point of contact with the meta.
Hello. So yes, as Melek said, I'm Kristina. I'm working at ESL for 1.5 years now. My team is working on strategic partnerships. That means we are mainly responsible for like really big brand clients like Mercedes-Benz, DHL, Vodafone, to some extent also Intel, but more like the non-endemic side, which means not the traditional branch which are in esports for years, but more like the newcomers in esports. But we are also doing like music partnerships, for example, with Universal Music, and yes, my team is doing that. And what our connection is to the overall women in esports approach, I mean, it's myself, obviously. So I'm a woman in esports, but also a lot of our clients are really into fostering women in esports. So we develop a lot of initiatives together with them. Vodafone is one of them especially, and Intel, but yeah, I think I can explain that a bit more with your questions.
Exactly, thank you so much. Well, Sara, would you kindly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sara Jakobsén, originally from Finland, but I live in Germany now. I used to live in Germany, nowadays live in Sweden. And I started gaming pretty late actually, 2011, when I got into League of Legends. And since then I've played on a couple of teams, and currently I play for Excel eSports in an all-female team. Yeah, that's kind of my...
What role do you have within the team?
I play top lane.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Your favorite?
Champion?
Yeah.
I was a Irelia main for about 4 years, so I would have to say her.
All right, cool. So, David? Oh yeah, we don't have enough microphones as it seems, but we'll share, that's fine.
Hi, I'm David Smith. I've worked in the industry for 20 years. In my day job, I run an international recruitment company working exclusively in interactive entertainment. 9 years ago, I saw the need, and nobody stopped me, creating a not-for-profit organisation called Women in Games Jobs, now called Women in Games WIGJ, which is probably the largest not-for-profit women's group in Europe. We have over 11,000 followers on Twitter, 7,000 in our LinkedIn group, 3,500 in our Facebook group. And I have an interest in esports, and it's all followed from that.
Okay, that sounds awesome, and like a very good basis to actually discuss the meta of women in esports. And well, we recently had an esports festival that focused towards girl gamers, towards females in esports. Sara, you've been there. David, you've been there as well. Tell us a bit about Girl Gamer Festival. What is it?
Yeah, Girl Gamer Festival was a tournament for CSGO teams and League of Legends teams organized in Portugal by Grow Up Esports, which is the oldest esports organization in Portugal. And they invited 4 teams from each of the games to come play. The main part of it was not to be rough competition. It was mostly to give girls chance to attend an event and compete, meet each other. There was also a conference, so we listened to talks, and yeah, it was a very good experience.
David, why is a festival like this important?
Well, the festival that we went to earlier this year was significant because it's the first time ever in the whole world. Actually, it's not the first time ever because there was It was the second Girl Gamer eSports Festival. The first one was held in Macau, China, which I think historically is a Portuguese colony, which is why they came to Portugal next. And it's the first time that women's esports has been celebrated independently of men's or the open esports environment. It's very important we don't talk about men versus women, because the esports environment is an open environment. It's just massively male dominated. So this is the first time in Europe that women's team were invited to come together in their own right across 2 games to play tournaments, and a lot of people believe that there should be many more tournaments like that to encourage more young girls to get into esports and to promote esports to a much wider audience than there is at the moment.
And as said, females are underrepresented in this economy, well, in the professional part of esports especially. Sara, how did you become a pro gamer?
So I started playing League of Legends in 2011. I did very minor games or gaming before that, and I actually started out in mixed tournaments on ESL platform, but we got destroyed pretty much. So I took a little break from that, and then a few years later, I decided to create my own first team, because I found this random Facebook group with girls who play League of Legends, and I saw that there were actually tournaments organized for girls. So I wanted to take part in that and got my first team together, and that's pretty much how it started.
Why are there so few of us? Why are people not playing, why aren't girl gamers tend to not play competitively?
Yeah, so I think the split is pretty much 50-50 with boys and girls playing. It can be different genres, of course, but girls competing, I think it's that they don't really see competition. Girls competing, hosting events, casting, and then they don't know that it exists. That was the fact for me. But then when I found out about it, it was really interesting, because I've been competitive doing regular sports all my life before that. So I think girls like competing, and if they find out about competing, then they'll get into it.
It was actually just it was the same with me. So the moment I understood that there is something like a competitive scene, I was absolutely involved and up for it and wanted to compete in the highest ranks possible. And Kristina, can you describe ESL's approach to activate and also reach more female gamers and bring them into competitive gaming?
Yes, I think one aspect David mentioned is really important. Esports in general is open, and so is ESL. So our approach overall in esports is to make esports one of the biggest sports in the world. So that also, of course, includes women. So we are steadily broadening our reach and trying to address more people to esports. So the question is, do we really have to talk about certain initiatives which are only for women, or do we have to make esports in general better? Because I think also still esports has a lot of potential to grow more mainstream, and there are a lot of reasons why some people, also guys, might not watch esports today, where we can improve esports, and I think there are a lot of aspects to do so. So for ESL, it's important to be a platform for everyone, not only for playing but also for watching. But if you want to play, it doesn't matter how old you are. Just there is a restriction for some games, of course, which is an important restriction.
When it comes to the lower level of age, right?
Lower level of age, yes, definitely not at the higher level. So, of course, even a grandpa or grandma could play at our platform. There is no... restriction. Yeah, or I mean, even somebody who's 100 or older. So there are no restrictions when it comes to demographics. Also not when it comes to geography. So anywhere in the world you can play with ESL. And also on every level. So from grassroots on, you can start play. And can decide if you want to keep it on a casual level or if you are interested in becoming more professional. And of course, we want to foster that more people want to become professional. And I think it's all about giving inspiration to do so, giving more education on it. Maybe it's a good term that you mentioned, that not enough people know about it yet. But also from a content perspective, we are steadily improving our content to be more attractive to a mainstream audience. That can be through backstage reportings, more entertainment content, and not only like the heavy esports content, which is like really for the ones who are into esports for a lot of years. But this also comes with a lot of challenges because we don't want to give the hardcore esports fans the feelings we are only for amateurs. So, of course, you have to find the right tone for a broad audience. That's first of all what ESL stands for, and why we don't think we exclude somebody or why we have any hurdles for girls to enter. But of course, there is still a gap between like the male audience and the female audience. That's the reason why we are also supporting female activities, activations, and so on. I love the idea of the Women's Festival. We have something like this, but not standing alone, but at IEM Katowice. We every year hold also a female CSGO tournament, which is great because the females have a really big audience there. That's not a grassroots tournament, but like really the best women in the world compete there. So really worth to watch also. We will do that next year again, as far as I know. I think it's not officially confirmed. So.
Well, it is now.
no, but we are working on it. Let's say it like this. So it's really important for us to continue these success stories, and we are also happy that we have a lot of partners, as I mentioned before, like Vodafone, who want to foster these activations also. So, for example, Vodafone brought also kind of a similar thing to IEM Sydney this year, where local women actually, so Australian women competed in Counter-Strike. I think I have to mention that Counter-Strike at the moment has a big girls player base in comparison to a lot of other titles, like I think League of Legends is comparatively small, maybe also not so small, but for example when you're looking for female players in Dota 2,
I mean it's a way younger game. I mean it comes with the years as well.
Yes, for sure. And I think also one important fact in esports why I think a lot of women will now come automatically is the mobile movement. So we see a lot of mobile games coming up, which are also possible to play on a competitive level because, when we're talking in gaming in general, I think there are a lot of female gamers already. But when we're talking about esports, there is a limited amount of titles where we can really talk about an esports title. So it's good that the publishers are now developing mobile titles which are also competitive.
Okay, David.
Yeah, I just want to come back on the original question as to why there are so few female pro gamers. There was some really interesting market research that came out last year from a market research organisation called YouGov, which is across 8 countries, including Germany. They identified 2 reasons. Well, there was a massive amount of statistics in there, but the interesting statistics for me were gender-related because of the belief in the industry that it's completely open and equal to men and women. Gender statistics are not normally captured. But the basic market research asked a couple of questions like, have you heard of eSports? And then if you've heard of eSports, are you interested in eSports? So pretty fundamental basic questions which a market research company would organise. There were 2 really interesting answers. First of all, the lack of awareness of esports amongst women was massive compared to men. Like in the, I'm going to quote some UK statistics because they came and presented to my office the UK stats, but in the 18 to 24 age group, i.e. the like target market, men were over 50% aware of esports. Women were less than 20% aware. So there's a massive lack of awareness, probably because all the marketing has been aimed at.
I don't think maybe it's not even a marketing issue, but where you can find esports or where you could find esports in the past. Because in the past it was really a niche topic, only happening on Twitch and dedicated gaming and esports platforms. Nowadays, it's so cool that we have even mainstream TV channels who broadcast esports, like ProSieben did in Germany, for example, and not only on ProSieben Max, but also on the main channel, which was amazing for us. Not in terms of reach, because in comparison to what we reach on Twitch, for example, it's really, really low, but for us it's really important to get new target groups. And also what we have decided at some point is not only to go with Twitch, but to open our ecosystem. And nowadays we also stream through Facebook, YouTube, and where we can also find a lot more women than on Twitch only. So I think it's important to bring esports everywhere, and it's not that we specifically target only male, but I think it's more where it came from, and you have to build it up, right? And the niche was male, yes.
Okay, and the second reason, because this is probably more important, okay, lack of awareness you can probably solve with some decent marketing. Lack of awareness was that when you asked both, obviously men and women, if you've heard of esports, are you interested in consuming it in the future? There was a massive gender turn-off gap between the two sexes. So in the UK, 3 out of 4 guys that had heard of esports wanted to consume it in the future. Only 1 in 4 women. So 75% of men really liked esports, only 25% of women. And the reason is, it's sort of obvious, that the product is not that interesting as it currently stands, because why would you, in the audience as women, be interested in to see wall-to-wall men on screen playing computer games? You know, we know from the diversity movement that it's very important for women that you can't be what you can't see. And if you can't see any women on stage or commentating or in the background, why would you want to get involved? And the answer is you probably don't. So there is a problem with the product, and until the industry as a whole, including the likes of ESL, sorts out the product to make it more welcoming towards women, we're not going to get as many women in the audience, and even more difficult to get them up on stage and actually playing the game.
It is really hard, actually, because I totally understand your point, and I agree absolutely. But by the way, I'm like part of the panel and hosting it. Just so just a quick hint. It is there are very little female hosts, analysts, casters, gamers. There are no pro gamers in top tier 1 tournaments at this moment. You don't see female gamers on the big stage. But the problem is we have too little female gamers, because let's say 1 out of 10,000 gamers make it. That's even more, like 1 of 100,000 esports enthusiasts make it at some points in their career on this big stage. So we need more female gamers until one of them is like talented and maybe willing enough to sacrifice her time and powers to achieve that goal in a mixed team. So how do we solve that problem? Like we can't get girls to play because we don't see them on the big stage. But on the other side, there are not enough girls to compete on that level to reach that level. I mean, I was a gamer myself. So
also maybe to add, I mean, we would love to integrate more women. Seriously, I mean, doesn't matter if as a caster, moderator, or player, but yeah, the portfolio, let's say it like this, of women who are playing or casting on a professional level is like really limited. So one of our best casters, Pansy, she's a girl. We love to book her. We have her at our tournaments as often as we can. So she is a fixed part of the ESL cast. And also, I mean, Melek can tell stories. I mean, every opportunity we have to book Melek for hosting like clients events in esports, we book Melek because we love to have her as a girl representing esports. Or also, yeah, when it comes to anything related esports, we would love to have more women. I think it's more about fostering them to get there at some point to be able to do that. So, yeah.
I think it could also be a question about generation. Our parents have not grown up with games as much as we have. Everyone loves playing games when they're a kid. So I think maybe it's because of like societal norms that girls stop playing games at one point, whereas boys are encouraged to keep playing games and compete. So maybe in the next generation that will change and get more girls to keep playing games.
We have seen the approach of placing females in such tournaments that didn't go well. Do you think that is the right approach?
What did you mean with that question?
Not letting them qualify, but just like
In mixed tournaments? Yeah, I would think that's the wrong approach. I perfectly think that girls are capable if they, like you said, put the time and dedication, and if they have the talent for it. So I think they should then enter on the same terms.
Yeah.
I mean, also, we don't want to foster the feeling that women are not there yet. If you let them compete too much, or you would try to put them in a male tournament today, and I mean, these tournaments are not naturally male. We are open for everybody when it comes to the rules. So every girl could qualify together with a team. Also, a pure female team could qualify for one of our big tournaments. But I think if you would just put one woman there and she would lose because she's not on the level like the men, I mean, I think that would be definitely the wrong approach, because then we would just foster the feeling that women are worse.
Can't make it on their own.
Can't make it on their own. So, yeah.
I see. We have a question from the audience. I will just walk over to you. I mean, it's our living room, isn't it?
I just want to throw something into the round, because I really get your argument, but on the one hand I get it, but on the other hand I think it's a bad excuse, because I know for a fact that there were women who are good enough, especially I know for a fact in Overwatch there was one, and teams kept bringing up excuses why she can't be in teams, like before that, but they had problems with getting her, and I know that in League of Legends there were similar problems with women getting a lot of hate when they tried to compete. They're actually stepping down from the stage because of that, and I think there are women who are good enough, but I think a lot of organizations try to bring up excuses why they shouldn't compete. And I think we have not only like the problem that there are less women who play, but we have like a social problem we have to solve and find solutions for it. I think that's a problem as well.
To be honest, I'm not familiar with the case, so I can't say too much. I can just say that it's a team thing. ESL is not owning teams, so we can only ask them, and we have founded the WESA, the World Esports Association, to create such values like equality and stuff like this, and we can also only ask people to be more active in also providing females the chance to play, but we are not owning the teams or giving them any advice that they have to stick to. So that's the first thing. When it comes to our tournaments where we only have one player, so not a team game, but a single player game, we have seen women succeeding already. So Scarlett, for example, won our IEM Winter Olympic stop. And we are really proud of this story, and we love this story, and hope that also will inspire a lot of other women to do something similar. But when it comes to team sports, we can only encourage the teams to do so.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the organizations a lot, that they are willing to pick up female teams, give them the same tools and like staff, coaching, managers that male teams get to help them grow and develop. And then I also think it takes, how would you say, personalities, like for example Scarlet or Geguri in Overwatch, who have the strength to stand up against the like mistreatment kind of. Yeah, I think those set a really good example for girls.
Do you want to add something to that? I feel like you.
Not really. I mean, I think the fact that some women make it completely to the top just shows that there is potential for
Absolutely.
hundreds of women to be at the top. I think the fact that you've managed to get one or two to win tournaments out of, let's say, 5,000 tournaments that have taken place in the history of esports suggests that if we tweak a few things, that's not going to change very much. I think you've got to do something at a community level to encourage more women to get involved in a safer space than exists at the moment.
Absolutely.
I know there's lots of people wanting to ask questions, but
Are there? Sorry. Yeah, of course.
which is good. But
Just go down there. Sure, go ahead.
no, I'm
Okay. So-
in Parliament
no.
they say I give way
Okay.
to
to the audience. No, of course, that is an absolute factor. But on the other hand, there are also a lot of male players. I mean, everyone that steps into the focus of an audience gets hate, gets mistreated, and well, I think it polarizes more if you attack a smaller part of the group, of course, but we still have to keep in mind that a lot of pro players, male pro players, have to fight the same issues as girls. They have to prove themselves at some point. That's what I've learned the past 16 years at least. So who want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, one question is, what was with the pressure the coming up, or the other team members are like bashing you because you want to try be better? What was the main reason for you to just stand up and do your thing? Because you said you did competition in other sports as well, but it's different. No, I'm not an eSports kind of girl, but I'm not doing hard competition as well. But I think it's really hard for, like, often in MRPGs, it's like you sometimes pretend to be like male just to be not treated differently, and I bet it's kind of really hard to do it in esports, like stand up and raise your voice and do your thing. So what was your main spark which inspired you, and what would you give advice to girls, like, to just try esports for that reason?
Yeah, so my name is pretty Paleolite. It doesn't really signal if it's like a male or female, so I guess that's a curse or a blessing, I can't really say. But I think it's been like passion driven for both the game and for competing that has gotten me to keep at it. And then it's also that I don't mind playing in mixed teams. I really like playing with girls, so having a team and you can support each other, that's really important as well. And what was the last question?
What's your advice maybe for how to get going? Because I like to play in mixed teams as well and have competition with friends, and like maybe it's the more safe environment which you were talking about, but basically if you're doing esports, you just go out there and you're open to criticism or hate, like I said before. And what's your advice on girls to like go in esports, how to continue, how to stand up? What would you give them for advice?
Yeah, if you get like mean comments or hate or so, you just have to not feed the trolls, like you said, and I don't usually address them. And then also to have, it can be your team, it can be other people in the community you play who support you. That's really important.
What I always told myself when I was competing and got a lot of flack from like teams I played against, because I used to compete in mixed teams as well, and I always said, like, if you're getting attacked, it's because you have the ball, you know. It's like it's because you're doing something, you're in a position that someone has to take you down to advance. So that brings you up on a higher level than the one attacking you, and that's what I like tried keeping in the back of my head. Like, okay, they attack me because they're aware of me, they're scared of me, they don't want me to succeed, and that's what kept me going forward. Question? No, sorry.
It's just when you talked about why women, we have 50-50 women and men in playing games, but not in competing in games. And I just asked myself if that's just a German thing, perhaps, but I feel like we don't teach little girls from the beginning, as we teach little boys, to be competitive, not just in gaming, but in general, in life or in sports especially. And I'm questioning if that's perhaps also a reason why we don't see a lot of women competing, especially.
Yeah, I think it can be like contradependent, of course. Definitely something that I hope changes, that regardless of gender, you give kids the chance to, if they want to compete, they compete. But yeah, but like David mentioned, the grassroots level is really important, that it gets developed in every country. And in Sweden, we have an organization called Female Legends, who have now started running tournaments for girls in most games, CSGO, Overwatch and League of Legends, for example. So that's really great to see. It gives girls like a safe space to start competing.
Yeah, the solution, one of the solutions, and we mentioned IM Katowice earlier. Both Ruth from Womenize and I were invited to attend an experts workshop, I think they called it, back on the 1st of March in this little city in Poland, which has a massive eSports culture, to sit for 6 hours in a workshop to try and come up with some solutions or suggestions, not just to get more women into eSports, but more women into gaming, and I think it was more women in tech. So it was like an impossible task in 6 hours. So we concentrated on women in eSports, and there was a paper that I'd been writing for maybe a year, 18 months, that we discussed as a group. Apart from Ruth from Germany and myself from the UK, we invited the founders of Women in Games France, Women in Games Italy, and Women in Games Stockholm. So we had some pretty significant experienced diversity experts that weren't 100% experts in esports. I mean, no one's an expert in esports because esports has been around for relatively small time compared to, let's say, video games. But anyway, we put together a paper with 12 recommendations that we sent through to the chief exec of ESL and to the general manager gaming and esports of Intel in the States. Sadly, we haven't seen any evidence yet of any of the recommendations being worked on. But coming back to the initial question, one of the key things to make this work is to run massively more all-female leagues and tournaments at the community level in particular, to enable the women that choose to want to play with other women, and there are plenty of women that hate the idea of only playing with women. They want to beat the men all the time. So it's a you know, the choice equals empowerment. If you want to play with other women to get some more experience, to build a network so that you can go out and frag as many men as possible in the future, then these community tournaments need to exist, and companies like ESL, quite frankly, need to put them on, because if they don't, other organisations will.
Mm-hmm. And I think I was one of these girls that said, I don't want to play all-female tournaments because that's stupid. I want to play mixed teams. I played all female tournaments like a year later, but I have never like given enough thought to the idea, because I figured like after my time as an active player in these all female leagues, that it builds a lot of confidence as well to compete in a safe haven, pretty much with people that have the same mindset, the same ideas, and the same interests. And that's something we have to build upon. That's true. Yeah, but we have.
I think because ESL was mentioned several times, maybe I should also add something. No, I mean, I haven't seen this paper, so I'm happy to also have a look at it afterwards. But in general, when you're talking about having more female tournaments, I think that's what we are steadily trying. It's also a budget thing, to be honest. Maybe not on an online level, but especially when it comes to having like actual live tournaments on ground with to host an event. And for our big tournaments, which are male, not because of our restrictions, but because of the player base, we have big partners, sponsors, media partners, and so on, who finance that. We couldn't do that on our own, of course. So we have to find the right partners to do this female tournaments as well. And the good thing is that we see a lot of interest, in, especially for the partners which are not from originally from the gaming background. I think that's a good thing, and which we are really using as ESL also, and where we are steadily working on. One example was IEM Sydney, I think, because I mean IEM Katowice, yes, it has been there. It's one of the flagships, but we want to do more of these things. We are also doing it in a small, more small way. Also with Vodafone, for example, at ESL Cologne, we had the best female, a lot of good female pro players. Melek was there to host the overall thing, to play against fans, which was also a great activation, because the mainly male fans love to play against the girls, and were impressed.
So confident. They were so confident. Yeah, easy peasy. I was like, yeah. We'll see.
I think more than 90% of the games, probably 99% of the games, was won by the females. So this was also a cool activation to show how strong they are. And actually, the boys were kind of fanboys to these girls. They also wanted to have signatures and stuff like this. So
and a lot of selfies.
This is also sometimes a cool thing to activate, and also to educate guys that females are also good players. And I'm happy to work on more things like this with my partners in the future, and I hope that a lot of other partners will see this development as well. I know that Mercedes-Benz is highly interested in also encouraging women in the future. They have their youth programs in football already. We will do something similar, scouting programs, maybe in the future also with Mercedes. DHL is interested, so I think there is a lot of potential of these players who are now entering the market to get budget for this stuff, because I think without the budget and the power of other partners, we can't do it, but we are willing to. So I think ESL will do everything, and we will do everything in finding the right partners as well.
Yeah, it's worth saying that it is believed that no one in esports is making any money. The environment is pretty tough. It's all financially driven. Lots of big companies are getting involved because they think they will make money eventually. Mm-hmm. But if companies like ESL, and I'm assuming ESL as much as anyone, because they do a massive amount of work in terms of infrastructure all over the world, if they're not making any money, and you suddenly say, well, wouldn't it be nice to put on an all-female tournament, and there's no money in the bank, then obviously it's a bit difficult. Having said that, people are really interested in esports because it focuses on the millennial audience, so the really young audience that doesn't watch TV anymore. The sponsorship available from brands that want to reach the female millennial is not actually tapped at all. So there's a massive potential there. The Girl Gamer Festival was in Portugal, was sponsored by Sephora, is that? Okay, it's makeup. I don't. It's not one of my brands.
It's much more than makeup, okay?
And did you have to put on some makeup? All the teams were made up or had the opportunity to be made up, which is cool if you like being made up. So there is. It's a question of bringing together the brands that really want to get involved, that can reach the female millennial just as much as the male millennial. Get those together with tournament organisers and some serious grassroots community eSports, which will start to take place. But it just needs, the catalyst there to get these things together.
That's true. I mean, the development I noticed over the past years is there is something happening. Like even traditional sports clubs, as Beşiktaş, for example, picking up all-female teams, but it's still too slow. But on the other side, I totally understand Kristina's point as well, like if you don't have the budget for it. But on the other side, you could work on the budget by activating more, as you said, brands that are interested in the female millennial audience. But we do have another question, or was it answered in...
I have a question. I wanted to ask what games make it to esport, because when I think of games in esport, they are all boyish. No girly games at all. Maybe we could reach more girls playing games if there were more competitive girl games.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was the reason why I also mentioned mobile games, because from their nature, mobile games attract more women than, or also more women. That's for several reasons. Main reason probably, the device is so much cheaper and everybody has a smartphone in comparison to the investment you have to do in getting a gaming PC. I myself struggle since I'm working for ESL to get a gaming PC on my own, because I think it's a huge invest. So I tend to play at work, but not at home. But I'm not a classical gamer. So maybe I'm the wrong target group there. But in general, yes, it comes with the titles also. We are unfortunately not a publisher, so we can also give advice to the publishers when we are talking about it with them. What kind of potential for esports we still see, and activating women with the right titles is definitely one. I think with Fortnite now being one of the biggest titles that has esports potential, or Clash Royale. Which is there for a while already, but especially with Fortnite and the upcoming mobile titles, I think there's a big chance that esports for women will grow anyways, because more women will play. But still, yes, that there is a lot of potential to have a more female game. But what is a female game? That's also the question.
I like my Counter-Strike.
And this room is full of game developers.
Yeah.
Go and develop a game that has esports potential. Yeah. I mean, I know that there are lots of games in the UK that are in development. Well, lots. I mean, I don't know lots, but there are a number of because there's games that reach not just the male audience but female audience or a combined audience. There's a gap in the market there.
Yeah.
I would love to have a competitive, I would love. I think the market would love a competitive Candy Crush, puzzle.
Oh, my mum would love it. She's
uh,
actually in some top 100 or something. Crazy.
Audience.
It's really crazy.
And there are games like Hearthstone, which are like card-type games, which are said to appeal more to the female demographic.
The problem with esports title is that you can't build a title with the headline, okay, this is going to be the next esports title. The community decides. Like, it has to be appealing. It has to work with the same mechanisms that
It has to be
support.
watchable, pretty much, as
yes,
well.
that's the problem with Overwatch at this point.
Overwatch and Fortnite, to some extent.
And all battle royale titles. But Overwatch has been working on it a lot and has improved a lot. So we're going in a direction. And also what I love seeing is having female champions, female heroes in those esports titles like Overwatch, League of Legends, Dota, and of course, you name it, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone. And so we're getting there. So it seems like we're working on it, but it could go faster, obviously. And we're already so much. You're gonna get your lunch break. Don't worry about it. And there will hopefully be cake left for you guys. But thank you so much for sticking with us. Do we have more questions from the audience? No? Like, Melly, we want our cake. Please let us go. Yeah. There is no stupid question.
No, not stupid, super quick. Just in your intro, I didn't get what your background is. Like, how did you get into esports? Were you in the TV business before?
Yeah, more or less. So directly before ESL, I worked at ProSieben Sat1 in the strategic department, digital strategy department. So I had nothing to do with esports or gaming before. I always liked to play on a casual level, but not like really regularly, but more when there was an occasion to do it. I liked to do it. So it was more coincidence that I came to ESL because my former mentor at ProSieben, he changed jobs and went to Modern Times Group, which is now the main investor of ESL. And at some point he asked me to join ESL as well, and to be honest, my first reaction, to be honest, I can't imagine working in esports, because what shall I give to esports? And I think it's not because I don't like gaming, but I had no clue about gaming and esports before I joined. And I mean, if that's for somebody of you, if it prevents you from applying to a job, it is not always important to have like all the background knowledge, but to bring some your skills and your motivation and your passion into a job. And they were looking for somebody with a similar profile than mine, and we said, okay, let's try it. It's the same for my team, which I hired afterwards. Not everybody had a gaming or esports background. Some had not. I think we are a good mixture of both. But it's all about passion in the end, and about which I really liked in as your argument as well, because everybody who is motivated to learn by doing so, like by doing this job and learn more about the market, and is interested in understanding this market, because it's a huge market which has so much potential, and you are really able to build something up. And this is what in the end motivated me to go into esports. Maybe not the games itself or something like this, but the reason, the thing that you can create something new, you can be part of the big growing of the market. That was my motivation, and in the end, it's also fascinating how passionate the people are within this market. And I think it's not true for every market which is growing, that there are also these passionate people. And Sara is one of them, and a lot of my colleagues are other ones. Melek is another one. David is another one. I mean, I think it's full of passionate people, and that's what's so cool about it.
Okay, so let's sum it up. We're coming to our extended time of this panel. So what can we do to get more women into esports? We can place more tournaments that are aimed towards women in esports by activating partners that want to reach said target group, millennial women, millennial females. And the next thing is to not put them on a pedestal, like to outline them, but to implement them into the leagues and into the system to make it more welcoming towards them. And I had a third one, and that slipped my mind just yet. I know, Yasha, we have to wrap it up. I'm So if you want to add something to that, like we have to keep working on it and we have to work faster. Am I right, David? We have to also maybe develop more games that are aimed towards said female target group, and we have to spread the word. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, my closing thought is that esports are going to be absolutely massive. If you're not aware of it now, and there are a lot of people that are not aware of esports, and I may be preaching to the converted as far as this audience is concerned, but if you're a young kid today, rather than if you're a young teenager today, you've got a choice of putting on your football shorts or your netball skirt and going out into the cold on a winter's day, or you've got the choice of sitting behind a screen and fragging whatever you can there. And the choice is pretty simple. If you're a teenager, you're going to play games, and if there is the route for these young teenagers to make money playing games competitively, they're going to take it. So, we had a great female football star earlier. They're going to be less starry in the future because esports is going to take away all the youngsters away from traditional sports. So it may be 10, 20, 30 years, but esports will be probably, and esports is a collection of a whole sort of different games.
We're absolutely aiming towards
a bit bigger than football. It's not going to replace football. People are still going to want to play football or soccer, but it will be as big. So culturally, it's going to make a really big difference in the world. And the only chance we have to get more women involved is to start now.
I just had one funny story related to this. My mom is a elementary school teacher, and she asked her children they did a project. Everyone drew one paper of their dream job, and actually, like most of the boys in the class, they drew themselves as pro gamers. It was amazing.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I think was well said. I think from ESL's perspective, what we really want to do is motivate our partners to help us building this up, and we will for sure work on that.
Right, that sounds really good. A big round of applause to our awesome panel. Thank you so much for your insights, experiences, and for sharing it with us. And guys, thank you so much for getting involved. If you have any further questions.